Hi guys, here we are for Notes over 5F, Section 5F, and in this section we're going to learn to read a word problem, write an equation from that word problem, and then use the equation to solve the problem. So remember equations, and these will be algebraic equations, so they'll have a letter, a variable in them, and then they will also have an equal sign. Okay, so our steps for doing this: first we're going to identify what our variable is, then we'll define what it stands for. We did these with expressions earlier too. Then we'll write our equation, and finally we'll solve the equation, and we'll want to make sure that we always label the answer. Let's look at our first problem here. It says Emma paid $26 in all for a hammer and a screwdriver. The hammer cost $10. Write an addition equation using the variable n to show how much she spent on the screwdriver. So we know n, and the problem will tell us what n should stand for. It's usually what we're going to figure out, right? So n is going to be how much I spent on the screwdriver, how much Emma spent on the screwdriver. So this will be the amount spent on the screwdriver. So we know that Emma paid $26 altogether, so the sum of the hammer and the screwdriver together is going to equal 26. So it'll be $10 for our hammer, then plus n, the value of the screwdriver, equals 26. So the next step then will be to solve this. So we have 10 plus n equals 26. We know that we want to isolate the variable by doing opposite operations to both sides of the equal sign. And we have n here equals $16 for the hammer. All right, let's look at the next one. Kenya bought 28 beads at Hobby Crafting. It takes 35 beads to make a necklace. Write and solve an equation to determine how many more beads Kenya needs to make a necklace. Okay, so we'll let b be our variable. It doesn't tell us what the variable should be. And what we want to determine then is how many more beads Kenya needs to make a necklace. So, how many more beads needed to make a necklace? So we know we've got 28. We have to add in some number of beads, and that will give us 35 because that's how many beads it'll take to make one necklace. So 28 beads that we have plus some number that we don't know will give us 35 to make a necklace. Solving our equation, 28 plus b equals 35. Subtracting 28 from both sides, b is going to equal 7 more beads. So we need 7 more beads to be able to make a necklace in that situation. All right. A box of pencils cost $3. Brian got $2 change after paying for one box. Write a subtraction equation using the variable x to show how much Brian gave the cashier. So we know we need a subtraction equation, and we know that x is going to be how much Brian gave the cashier. All right, so our variable is x, and it is the amount Brian gave the cashier. Okay, so we know that Brian started off with X amount of money that he gave to the cashier. He spent $3 of that to buy the pencils, and he got $2 back then in change. So we've got X minus 3 equals 2. Adding 3 to both sides, and we find out that Brian had given the cashier $5. All right. After dropping 5 degrees Fahrenheit, the temperature was 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Write and solve an equation to show what the starting temperature was. So it doesn't tell us what the variable has to be, so I'm going to call it T since we're dealing with temperature. And we're writing and solving an equation to show what the starting temperature was. So we want to know what the starting temp was. So we started at some temperature. It dropped 5 degrees. Dropping means we're going to subtract. It dropped 5 degrees, and we ended at 25 degrees. So we've got T minus 5 equals 25. So we had some temperature, we dropped 5, took away 5, and we ended at 25. And I'm sure that you can figure that out without even doing the work, but you want to show your work. So it's great practice here for more difficult problems coming up. So T equals 30 degrees Fahrenheit. All right. Cheryl gets paid $8 per hour at her job at the record store. She made a total of $96 last week. Write and solve an equation to show how many hours she worked last week. All right, so we'll call it H, and that's the number of hours she worked last week. So let's think about that. We're going to take the number of hours, and she gets $8 every hour she works, so we'll multiply that by 8, and she will earn then a total of $96 is what we're told in the problem that she earned. So she gets $8 for every hour, and when she got her pay, she got $96. So we solve for H, and we'll find out how many hours she actually worked. So we divide both sides by 8, and H will equal 12 hours because 96 divided by 8 is 12. All right, 2 more here. A hot air balloon flew at 10 miles per hour. A hot air balloon flew at 10 miles per hour. Using the variable H, write and solve an equation to find how many hours the balloon traveled. All right, so that's what we're looking for, how many hours the balloon traveled. So our variable is always going to be what we're looking for. So they told us to use H, so H is how many hours the balloon traveled. Okay, so we know that it was going at 10 miles per hour for some number of hours, and it traveled 70 miles. So 70 miles is what we ended up with, and the way that we got to 70 is we took these 10 miles per hour for this many hours. So we're going to say 10 times the number of hours is going to be 70 miles total. So 10 times H equals 70. To solve this, we divide both sides by 10, and H will equal 7 hours because 70 divided by 10 is 7. All right, last one. All of the students in Tim's class are divided into 4 teams of 6. Write and solve an equation using the variable S. And what is this going to show? The total number of students in Tim's class. Okay, so S is going to equal number of students in Tim's class. Okay, so let's see what we're going to do. We're going to take S and we're going to divide it into 4 teams of 6 students each. So if we take our S and we divide it by 4, we'll get 6. You could also do this by saying that we're taking S and dividing it by 6 students to get 4 teams. Either one of these 2 equations would work for this problem. Okay, so we're going to take our S divided by 4 equals 6, multiply both sides by 4 to do our opposite operations, and we see that S is going to be 24 students. All right, so we'll practice some more of these, but that's how to write an equation given a word problem and then solve it.